We do. You're going to be impressed. Hey, good evening, everyone. Hello. Hi. Hi, this is absolutely wonderful to see so many people here. We're going to get started in a few minutes, so I'd like just everyone to know that there's some coffee, snacks, water, cider right over here in the corner, and we're going to be taking some of the boards out and adding some more chairs, I hope, so that everyone can hopefully have a seat. So bear with us and we'll get started very soon. Hi, I'm Aileen Rohr, and I'm the supervisor of the town of Hyde Park. I'm here to tell you a little bit about our Hyde Park Downtown Initiative. It's a program to address the lack of infrastructure along Route 9. Our goal is to create a vibrant town center that will include restaurants, lots of shopping, and community gathering places. The Hyde Park Downtown Initiative will be an economic engine that creates jobs, it builds our tax base, and benefits the entire town through these improvements. We have all these wonderful assets. We have amazing trails. We're right in the heart of the Hudson Valley. We're on the river. There's so many great things about Hyde Park, but Hyde Park, having developed during the post-World War II era, didn't really have a typical village center or a typical Main Street feel.
The town board, under Supervisor Rohr's direction, said, what can we do? What can the town do? We don't own the property, they're all individually owned, and we can't go in and dictate what they do with them.
So we have implemented the Downtown Initiative, where we've established priorities of creating pedestrian infrastructure, as well as addressing the lack of a commercial sewer district. We applied for monies through the State of New York Transportation Assistance Program, and we received a hefty award of $679,000 to begin this process.
If we did not go for these grants, this money would have went to other communities. So our taxes would be building other communities. So it's nice that we're taking money and bringing it back home and building our future.
It's also to encourage businesses to come in because the look of Hyde Park will be tremendously improved.
The best way to sell your property is to have curb appeal, and that's really what we're doing here in Hyde Park.
So the one component is the pedestrian component, we've got that covered, but the second is creating a commercial sewer district to service that area, because without that you can't have the intensity and density that people expect in a town center.
I actually have a plan from the 1960s, sewer plan for Hyde Park. They've been working on it since then, and it's just never come together. And the reason is that it's expensive to put in a sewer. So what we're doing is we're creating a plan for a sewer district just for the area that needs it, the commercial area along the Route 9 corridor.
There's a lot of Route 9 that is not commercial, so therefore let's look at the pockets, which is less expensive, more doable.
We do have a proposed development across from the Culinary Institute of America, and the developers have agreed to provide a donation of $1.25 million to the town of Hyde Park to create a commercial sewer district.
By having the sewer district in that business area is going to enable many restaurants to open that we can't do right now. The septic just won't hold it.
We're doing a whole comprehensive plan for the town center where we started out with a market analysis where we had an economic development person go and meet with all the property owners, the business owners, the stakeholders, the fire departments, everyone in the area, and really find out what their views are for the future of the town center. We also had an open house where we had the public come in and kind of register all the public's ideas. The interesting thing was they all kind of pointed in the same direction, which is that people want restaurants, they want shopping, and they want a place that's really a town center where they can walk around. And there's also a high demand for more rental housing.
I'm particularly happy with the work in the town of Hyde Park, in part because it's always struggled to define its core center, its commercial center. New businesses, when they come into a community, if they're the ones that have to build the sidewalks, if they're the ones that have to put in the sewer line, if they're the ones that have to move the electrical utilities, if they're the ones who have to be worried only about landscaping. If they're the ones who have to meet all of those great expectations we have when we want to create, downtowns and centers, they're likely to say no, because the cost is so much. So if we can pool resources, share resources, and work together to drive down that cost, you welcome new businesses, you incentivize new growth, and with that comes greater assessed valuation, and most importantly, creates a sense of place.
I reflect on how our parades are in Hyde Park with the Memorial Day and the 4th of July, that the community just rallies together. There's a sense of a downtown when it comes to the parades, and really that's what I want to bring for 12 months out of the year, really having a sense of community downtown.
People see Hyde Park in the news, building sidewalks, making plans for the future, and I think it gives Hyde Park a positive energy, and that's what I'm really proud of.
It's going to be super. That pride is going to come back, and that people are going to say, wow.
We're doing what needs to be done and what should have been done 50 years ago to create this downtown in Hyde Park.
See, the sweets are on it. They always are. So, we're just so happy to have residents that want to be part of this positive movement that is here, that is now, that is the team. So again, thank you to Neil and everyone. I'd also like to thank NYSERDA for providing the funding for this amazing project. That's a part of the New York State government, and they provided the grant written by the amazing Emily Svensson. That is producing this really good work. And as the video described, we're really putting together this downtown initiative to address the lack of infrastructure in our community that has really, it is the source of our empty building problem. That is why we are not able to have the investment that we seek, the intense uses and the dense uses. So we're really getting to the heart of this problem by addressing the infrastructure. So I'd also like to thank the team that we have here doing this work. That's Mary Beth Biancone from Delaware Engineering, and Sandy Mathis, Elizabeth Horvath, and Elan Planning. They did all these amazing boards that were presented tonight. And we worked with the steering committee to really hone this project, and I want to thank them very clearly for that. We have county planning, an amazing partner for us every step of the way. I can't thank you enough. And our county executive, who's just really supported this movement and this momentum. We also had a lot of community volunteers on that steering committee, Sandra Jobson from DOT, and people like the National Park Service, who all gave their input to make this project not only a dream, which is easy enough to do, but to really give us the input we need to make it a reality, which is what we all know we want. But I also would be remiss if I didn't thank my town staff, especially Caroline Miller, my secretary. She does amazing work for the town, and we have a lot of excellent people in Town Hall, and really welcome people to come on in and talk with us at any time. So, as the video said, we're working to create the downtown that Hyde Park has never had by building the necessary infrastructure. The pedestrian and wastewater treatment is what we're focused on. So I hope everyone has noticed the first phase of our project was recently completed. Yay. Took... it was a big project, and we were very pleased with the results. And now we're moving on to stage 2, which we have another $1.1 million that was awarded through the Transportation Assistance Program. Again, a grant that was written by Emily Svensson. And today we just learned that we have firmed up our $500,000 award from our Assemblywoman. That's going to cover the entire match, and we're going to be able to add lighting to that project. So we are just over the moon, really. Yay! So that's the pedestrian component. The sewer is even more exciting. I had my two young adult daughters with me this last few days, and we were up in Red Hook, and I was like, "Oh, girls, let's go! I think they're getting a commercial sewer district here." And they're like, "You really are getting very wacky," but it is. But really, it is what is going to allow us to develop the downtown that we seek. So we have accrued $1.85 million in monies towards that project, partially through the county and partially through the dedication of the Belfield project that's moving ahead, and they have agreed to give the town $1.25 million towards that commercial project in our town center. So we're really building some momentum in terms of bridging the affordability gap, because we're creating this district, and it's great to see a number of stakeholders here, but we know that they're not going to want that district unless we can make it affordable. So obtaining grant money is key for that. So we were just named a New York State priority project, and for $4 million in additional sewer funding. And that doesn't mean that we actually have it yet, but it does mean that we are in the running. And we beat out a number of Westchester communities to gain that status. We had used a great grant writer, and with the direction of, and I forgot to mention Sandy Mathis, who's back there. He's our economic development guy, and he spent a lot of time talking with developers and various entities, and really gave us a lot of input on the way we should hone our grant applications. So that was very exciting. So I'm going to turn this over, and with just one final thought, that it's really is about investment. That's what has happened. That is what has held Hyde Park back and there are many things that have held us back, but that is really one thing that we've always just really rubbed two pennies together, making sure that we have enough to cover our day-to-day operations. But that is no way to really change a town. It has to be about investment for the future. And we are always in this hard place of controlling taxes, but yet having the need to grow our town. And so that's really where the grant funding has come in. And really, just as one final thought, that the Hyde Park Downtown Initiative really is the solution to our empty building problem. And I'm very, very, again, happy to have so many people here, and really look forward to working with all of you so that we can keep this momentum going. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mary Beth Bianconi, and she's going to lead you through the rest of the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Mary Beth Bianconi. I'm a partner at Delaware Engineering. We're not from Delaware. We're actually from Albany and Oneonta, New York. We do a lot of public infrastructure. That's really all we focus on, is public infrastructure. So we're very excited to be working with the town. We have an extremely talented group of consultants that are working with us. Many of them are represented here tonight. We have Elan Planning, who has helped us with our master plan. We have MJ Engineering, who's been working with us on our streetscape portion of the project. Studio A has been working on the landscape architecture. Mathis Public Affairs has been our outreach and market analysis. In our firm, I'm the sewer lady. Our firm, we work on sewers. That's what we do. And I have with me one of my business partners here tonight who's going to do a little bit of this presentation. So let's see, really quickly, our agenda tonight. We're going to talk about what the goals and objectives of this project were. One thing I will say is this is not all-encompassing. This is a project that is funded by a grant, so it has a scope, and we've been following that scope. Folks may want to talk about things that are kind of outside of that. That's wonderful. Having all you here, having people focused on this is fabulous. Tonight we're going to stick with our agenda, but the more that you think of things, if there are things that are outside of this project that you want the town board to be aware of, or the planning board, please, we have a comment board in the back. We also have some forms. I know that this town hall is incredibly accessible, and so are all of your town board members. So please let us know. Study area challenges, there are many. Just so folks know, this area that we're looking at is the area that's, I call it very generally, around the McDonald's. So it's that area around the McDonald's. It's an area that has some really vibrant land uses and a lot of really vacant buildings. So that's the area that we're looking at. Schedule and progress, what have we done? What are we gonna do? Public input, you're here tonight, wonderful. We've done a little bit of this in the past. We're gonna be doing some more in the future. The conceptual redevelopment plan, so that's sort of the heart of this whole thing. So this is this imagining of what this area of the community could be like based on input that we have from you and from the development community and people who may want to invest here. Route 9 improvements. That's the Route 9. It's a much larger area than just that area around McDonald's that we're looking at. And that includes things like sidewalks and parking and making things just look a whole lot nicer and much more inviting, a better pedestrian environment, bicycle, shared lanes, those kinds of things. And that lastly, the public sewer system, which is, I know, critical to this community. And so we're going to talk about some concepts. There are many different ways to do this. We have a few that we've worked on with our representatives here from the town. We've covered a very large area in some of these, all the way up to this location right here, Town Hall, and down as far as the FDR site. So we have some very broad look at this because we need to look at all of our options. And then lastly, we'll go over next steps. So what are our goals? We've kind of already talked about this. Create a vibrant downtown. I was with a group of people earlier today and they said, so what are you doing today? And I said, well, you been to Hyde Park? And they said, yeah, been to Hyde Park. And I'm like, so what'd you do when you were there? Oh, went to the culinary, went here, went there. And I'm like, so when you were driving down there, what did you see? Do you remember? Do you remember, like, after you left Rhinebeck and by the time you got to the culinary, what happened? They were like, we went by the Vanderbilt. I'm like, yes, you did. I don't know. I don't remember. And that's our problem. People don't remember. It doesn't have a sense of place. So we're trying to create that sense of place so that people remember it and it's meaningful to people here in this community and meaningful to our visitors. Our visitors are important. In a perfect world, we have lots of visitors. They come here, they leave their incredibly hard-earned money in our community, and they go away. Because that's what helps your tax base. So that's a wonderful thing. Boost our tax base, increase the quality of life for folks here. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. So our challenges. This is our study area. Can I use your pointer, Chad? I promise not to blind anybody with this thing, although I'm not really good at these. That's McDonald's. Just so folks know, that's McDonald's. This is the old grocery store. This is where the little pizza shop is that people pull in the back here and get their delicious slice of pizza. So that's kind of where we are in terms of the town. This is 9, that way is north. So you get an idea of what we're talking about. What limits this area? Lack of sewers is a big one. On the east side of Route 9, we do not have good soils for sewers, for septic systems. A lot of rock and not very good soil quality. So that tremendously limits the type of commercial development that can be here. The streetscape's just uninviting and very auto-centric. You know, the supervisor was wise to point out in the video that the development pattern here is sort of a post-World War II development pattern, very auto-centric. And that's really common in a lot of upstate New York, but we want to change that. Vacant buildings and very large expanses of asphalt. It's kind of shocking. I mean, I spend my whole life looking at communities this way, sort of the God view, looking down. You may not. So it may be surprising to you to see how much gray area there is on that map. That's acres and acres of asphalt. Residents lack amenities. When we had our earlier public open house here in the summertime, one of the things that we heard over and over again is things to do, restaurants to go to, things for kids, those kinds of things. So we really need those things in our community. That's not happening organically. out there in the world. We're not having developers come beating the doors down saying this is what we want to build here. So we're going to need to spur that and make it happen. And lastly, we have these visitors and tourists that just literally drive through. At our last steering committee meeting, the gentleman from the National Park Service was telling us that he recently had to turn away 2 very large groups from events at their site because there was no hotels for them to stay in. They couldn't even find any in the area because they were all booked. So that tells us that we have demand, but we don't have all the stuff that we need to capture that demand. All right, what have we done here? Back in the spring of this year, we kicked off this project. Prior to that, the town had created a steering committee, and I must commend all the members of the steering committee. They're incredibly, incredibly engaged, very smart, wonderful people who are contributing a tremendous amount of time and effort to this project. We held stakeholder interviews in the springtime, and our public open house was in June. I see a lot of faces that I saw at that meeting, and thank God we're not having another thunderstorm like we had for the last one, which thought the building was going to come down. That was extremely well attended and really wonderfully engaged folks who really provided a lot of really good information that have informed this development plan. We didn't make this up. This is what we heard from you. During the summer, we evaluated all of the existing conditions. What do we have out there in the world? We need to know where we start so we can figure out where we need to go. So we did that. That's part of our grant program, and I have to commend Elizabeth Horvath from my office, who has doggedly kept track of all of the pieces and parts of this grant and made sure that we're doing everything correctly. We drafted the redevelopment plan, the streetscape, the public sewers very recently, and we've continued to work on them. They're still a work in progress, and that's something that I want to make sure I emphasize. This is not a done deal. We're here to hear what you think. We were here in June. We got a lot of input then. We took our existing conditions, put them together, created some plans. You may look at these and say, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I meant. Or you may say, this is great. It's better than I thought it could be. So that's what we're looking for. Today we're presenting those findings, and that's what we need to move to our next step, which is a zoning analysis. Right now, the zoning in this area of the community, the study area, is fairly open zoning. It allows a lot of things to happen, and that might sound like it's a good thing. But from a developer's perspective, they want certainty. They want to know if I build a thing, I need to know what the guy next door is going to build. So we need to kind of frame that zoning and do a zoning analysis around what the ultimate potential imagining of this area could be. And then lastly, we'll have a final engineering and planning report that'll be generated. Now, here we go again, right? Another study to sit on somebody's shelf. Bad. So how do we prevent that from happening? Well, a couple of things about these studies. One thing is that in order to go ask for more money, and you guys are all to be commended because you have compiled a tremendous amount of money for visionary projects that frankly don't exist yet. So it's great that people think they want to invest millions in something that doesn't exist. You have to have a plan so that you can say, well, for your millions that you're giving me, this is what I'm going to build. That plan comes out of these reports. So it comes out of these reports for the sewer system. It comes out of these reports for the streetscape improvements and those kinds of things. So this plan is a tool. It's an active tool that you use to advance these concepts. All right, so to date, we've done a lot of things, and I'm not going to go through this whole thing again. We've done about half of our grant work at this point. Our next step right after this meeting is we need to finalize all of our infrastructure plans and our conceptual plans for the redevelopment area so that we can move on to the zoning code analysis. SEEKR is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. That's an environmental review conducted on projects that may have an impact on the environment. We're going to do that as part of this project. We'll have a report that's going to detail with a fair amount of detail, really. You won't be able to hand it over to a contractor and say, build this, but you're going to know it's this and not that when you get this report. And then lastly, that report will be adopted by the town so that, again, it can be used to go advance these next steps in the process. All right, so what did folks tell us when we were here in June? Reduce blight and vacancy. It's kind of obvious, but then it's the old, okay, so what's the next thing? What do we do to make that happen? Increase walkability. that was something. We had people who walked to this meeting in June, and I said, my gosh, where'd you come from? Because this is not exactly the most accessible place. Create unique sense of place. One of the things that we heard a lot is, we're asking people to sort of imagine what could this area be, but more importantly, it has to be something that's about you. It can't be a reflection of some other place. It can't be Cape Cod. It can't be Saratoga. It has to be your community. What is it that makes it uniquely you? A mix of uses, and one of the big things we heard lots and over and over and over again is food. So we heard food from a grocery perspective. We heard food from a local, like as in improve and expand the farmer's market. We heard food from I just want a nice place to go and grab a really good cheeseburger, to I would really like to have some more options that when I have guests in town, I have a place that I can go that I don't need a reservation, 8 months in advance. Those kinds of things. So food was a very common theme that we heard. Also, specialty retail, apartments. This is a trend that we're seeing all over the eastern side of New York State. We work from Plattsburgh down to the city and over to the Binghamton area and back up to Watertowns. That's sort of our geography. And in so many communities, we have folks who are saying, well, my kids graduated from high school. They went to college. They didn't come back for 2 reasons. No job, well, 3 usually. No job, nothing to do, and nowhere to live. So the job thing will come. The something to do, we can do something about. And the someplace to live, we can do something about, which is to have some really good quality housing in terms of apartments that's flexible and accessible to families and young folks. Make downtown vibrant, family-friendly, and well-designed. Keep a village look and feel, so folks are not talking about Breen and Walmart. That will shock you. It's more about just something small and appropriate in scale to bring in a village sense to this area of the community, and create green spaces, create a place where people can gather and just, have kids play ball or do whatever it is that they do. Go out and, I don't know if I do this, spread out a blanket and have a picnic, those kinds of things. Lastly for me, and then I'm going to turn this presentation over to Sandy Mathis, is what are our opportunities? What was interesting about the open house was we didn't hear a lot of negative. We really heard more, we have vacant buildings, but let's turn that into something really vibrant. So you could have gone the other way and said, well, we have these vacant buildings and that kind of stinks and we're never going to be able to do anything about them. We didn't hear that. What we heard was there's opportunity here. And capitalizing on the visitors. Again, we go back to right now, today, we heard folks wanted a small-scale grocery store. We don't have one. Well, we don't have one because we haven't demonstrated out in the marketplace that there's a demand for that. How do we demonstrate that? We need to bring all these elements together to get those things to happen. So capitalize on those visitors. Again, there's a lot of them, hundreds of thousands of them. All of them are fairly well heeled. They have lots of money. Let's make sure they leave their money here in the town of Hyde Park instead of going to Poughkeepsie or Rhinebeck or someplace else, which is what they do today. So let's get them to invest their dollars in coffee here, in food here, in staying here. That helps you all, and that's what attracts development. Build on the strengths of local food. You guys, the Hudson Valley is the hot place for food these days. If anybody is a subscriber to any of the major national newspapers, you will know that because there are all of these, take a food getaway in the Hudson Valley kind of things. So build on local food. Develop a vibrant mixed-use neighborhood. So not monolithic, not just all retail, not just all offices, but a blend of different things. Restaurants and apartments and public spaces and places maybe for people to gather or have a show or do different things. That's what makes a neighborhood vibrant. And lastly is create a unique destination for residents and visitors. Again, we're back to that. What is Hyde Park, and what does it really mean to us, and how do we represent ourselves as a community so that people will not say, like they did to me this morning, I don't really remember what that place on Route 9 looks like between, they'll say, that was an incredibly cool place. We stopped at the visitor center, and we tasted some food from the CIA, and we bought some local honey, and then we were on our way to our destination. That's what we're looking to do. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Sandy, if he can get up here. You're going to do it. Do you want this?
I don't really need it. I don't think so.
Can people?
Okay, sure. Why don't you bring that?
Okay.
Sure. I'm all about doing what I'm told. I'm gonna No, I got one. First off, thank you all for coming. This is an incredible turnout. Congratulations to the town board and all the stuff you did to get them here, so great job. I'm the economic developer, so I've done over my career, I've tried to revitalize communities, mostly communities like this, rural communities where it's challenging. We've kind of, been lost in the, since the 60s and 70s, and things changed and travel became easier. The Hudson Valley corridor kind of fell in disrepair, and I live over in Green, and we fight trying to bring our main streets back constantly, and there's success. So I'm going to talk about the themes. I'm going to take it a little deeper than what Mary Beth talked about. Then we're going to just quickly, because I've been given 5 minutes, and that's a real challenge for me to talk only 5 minutes, because we really want to hear your questions and hear from you. And then just talk about some images that are real, some examples. But let's talk about, so the master plan is intended to be flexible. It's a vision, it's a starting point. We don't own, the town does not own the land. Developers own the land. So progress needs to be made that makes it more attractive financially to do nicer, expanded development. That's the ultimate goal when you're working with a developer. So the uses came from the public, it's very flexible, and it's really a starting vision. Lots of work yet to be done. Hope for success. You can make it happen. You got an outstanding government that's working aggressively. The moons have lined up. You've made incredible progress. Public money is flowing. That's, you have to have credibility to get that. And you get that first project, that first initiative done, you start to build a momentum. And we chose that area there to really focus on that bigger area, because you start to make progress there. Other property owners will take notice. They'll need to improve their properties, and you start to get a momentum in your community that is pretty real. But you need that first project. But you have hope. You can do it. It happens. So community center, and I'm the one that talked to the almost 40 people from all across the community, different, and it's really, they wanted a community center, commercial center, something that's really walkable, something very dynamic. So that's really was pedestrian friendly. So you'll see in that master plan that you got the parking outside, but you get out of that car, you don't have to get back in that car, and not only can you walk around and do things in this development, but with public transportation, that kind of element, you really can go anywhere in the community and leave your car. Cool village street, so village, walkable. I was just in Richmond, Virginia on a conference last week. They have some old historic streets that are still stone. A little tough to walk around because they're uneven, but the concept is the same. They're taking stuff that's there, we're creating that, but it has to be, we have to be very careful that it's tastefully done. It's appropriate. It has that coolness we're looking for. But so that, when we talk, I'll identify it, but it's stone streets that you walk around, it has a different feel that you're going to really enjoy. Regional retail. You're not getting national retailers here. Quite frankly, the community doesn't want them. You want smaller spaces for those shops and all those things I heard that people want. The longtime resident, your New York weekenders, and quite frankly, the tourist community. A lot of those are similar, and it's that traffic that's united that actually makes enough of a business flow that you can get those things here. Food. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you got to embrace it. You got to be different about it. You got to be unique. And that, and quite frankly, my conversation with the CIA, the door was not slammed about them being a part of it. You got to be creative. You got to do something different than they're doing, but they're open to it. And that's a real discussion that will take place. Full service hotel. When I met with FDR and they said they got 700,000 people coming to that community to visit that site and do those things every year, and their average visit is between 2 and 3 days. Folks, those people are not staying here overnight. So that full service hotel that's on that plan is about partnering and packages together with your reasons why people want to come here, keep them here, because it's their spending that's going to make a lot of this to happen that really connects to what local residents want as services as well. So that's why the hotel's there. And there's other issues to why that's there, and we can certainly talk about that. But full service hotel. Gateway, we view this as the gateway. People are coming to this community, they're coming to this site to really figure out what they're doing, where they're going, to really get that heart and soul of Hyde Park, and then they spread around the community. Mix for residents and tourism. This plan and this strategy has got to include the interests of the residents, the folks that have been here forever, or the ones that have been here 30 years will never be considered they're here forever, but at least they've been here a long time and invested in this community. Okay? I've been at a place where it's forever, and I know how we feel. So, but it's important for the residents so the end product has got to address the needs of those that are here long term, and for those, quite frankly, as Mary Beth said, you want them to come here, you want them to enjoy the experience, you want them to talk to everybody, leave their money, and politely leave. It's okay, but you want that experience to be as wonderful as possible. So it's really a balance because it's that money that enables what the residents really want, quite frankly. Lastly, public transit access. So we've gotten the plan, whether it's a trolley, whether it's public transport, but this will be a place people can get transportation, park their car, and go to a variety of places and never leave. We want this to be truly a pedestrian-friendly experience. Leave your car. Get off of 9. Enjoy the experience. Okay, and again, this is the beginning stages. Really want your input. I will be here, and I'm going to go through this quick because I'm already probably at 5 minutes, and I see Mary Beth already giving me the stare. So we'll stay. I'll stay, answer your questions. We'll engage as long as you want to answer you fully understand. But what I'm going to go through is quickly what the uses reflect, and they came from this community. Okay, and we want a feel there. But again, this is a work. This is a piece of art that's just started. Maximizes flexibility. It's, again, the balance between residents and guests. It starts the conversation. And again, as more progress you make, you want the county, you want the state, you want the federal government ready to throw money at, because everybody loves success on the public side. And they all want to be here to cut the ribbon when you're drinking wine instead of water. Right? And we look forward to that. And I got a little pointer here. So A is that hope. So basically what we've done, so this is where the current, and again, there's a lot of stuff that we're looking at, but this is really where we think the momentum needs to start. So this is the property line currently. We're recommending, and the current owner owns up in here too. We're recommending that this 4-acre parcel, where there's a house now and a daycare center, be purchased by the developer to provide the level of scale to make this as substantive as we think it neans to be.
Can you point out to people where McDonald's is?
Oh, sure. So McDonald's is right here, okay? And, Pinewood here, so 9. So that's the hotel site. This is a B. I'll go by the letters, so that's how my list is. So this is your visitor center. So we view this as being the main entrance to this development. Your two traffic lights are really your bookends, because those lights are so critical. You have a traffic issue. You'll hear about it with the transportation folks. So we really think, and then you have the access point at the McDonald's that only goes north. So, but critical. So the gateway we view is coming up in here, and then this intersection becomes critical because it really makes a very nice connection to your Pinewood Park that has great potential to grow and really can start to connect to the hiking network and biking network that so many people have worked so hard about. So then C is, this is the public transportation area right here where it comes in, you have a drop-off point. And then C is what we view as a tourism area, a demo kitchen, something with food and beverage, maybe hopefully a partnership with the CIA, but really cool things happen here to drive traffic on food. And then connected with glass or connected with some kind of coverage to really provide the gateway. Okay? D, this is viewed as really what we're viewing as a potential new location for your library. There's some interest to go to a more modern location that can offer some opportunities. There's a lot of research and collaboration happening right now between your library and FDR and Roosevelt. There's a lot of cool things happening here. So we think that potentially some museum space, creative space, collaborative retail. So that turns in, and when I say public, it's still owned by a developer, but has public uses that will drive traffic to this location. E and F, this is where we see the really red, so all this green, or this is all open space, but this area here, all between, that's where all the stone pedestrian areas. So E and F become small shops, little cafe seating areas outside. This is where people are walking around, really getting a great cool feel of Hyde Park and having an experience, because there were so many experiences that I heard from local residents and travelers of what they wanted available here. And you're not going to, that's not the place you throw a Starbucks. That's the place you throw a cool, independent cafe that everybody's going to love. And you're going to be all on a first name basis. That's what you want there. So E and F reflects that. You have this middle area that really gives a, and remember, this land actually goes up, so the topography is higher, so it'll be an incredible view up here, great architecture, but you entry here and you just kind of have this whole community center that all connects. G, there's a building there now. We would see it reconfigured, redeveloped, but again, be retail. And where there's second and third floors on here, there's housing. Because we want apartments, we want people living here, we want a vibrant nightlife here. H is a parking structure that supports the hotel. And today's parking structures, you don't know they're parking structures. Very attractive, be retail on the bottom floor, and some level of housing or condos on the top floor. Again, providing the developer the incentive to do something nice that can make it profitable to take this development to the whole nother level. I is the grocery, potential independent grocery, food service, some level. It's sized to accommodate an Aldi's type store that does go into smaller communities, or it could be an independent co-op, something like that, that provides the consumer here an alternative and a more competitive situation for your food needs. J is it's way here. It's where the senator's office is. It's in the parking lot. Way down here. Oh, sorry. So down here. You just don't want to be in a field and have that get on your head. Then you're in trouble. That's right. So that's just because there's a parking lot there. It's in the other plaza. We, again, retail, commercial, some housing on top. K is the Mavis Tire location. So that's been knocked down, but that's going to be put back at the same general location. So we have that there. And then L is also, I believe it's the Verizon and Barber now. And that, we are told, is where Emergency One's going to go and be relocated there from the plaza. So we left these two, but our thinking is knock everything else down, start with a clean slate, really make something very cool, and really reflecting, again, as Mary Beth said, the community and what you want. We are not looking to create Rhinebeck here. We're looking to create a unique Hyde Park experience. Just to close, I want to just close it down before you go to the next slide, Mary. Well, you can go there, Elizabeth, thanks. So I defined I just want to make sure you do, so that full picture includes that 4 acres to the north, so you know that. That even though we've shown most of the work done on that area, it does take both sides of the road. Our feeling is, as you get momentum there, other development will take place, but we'll be taking a look and showing some of that in the final report. There's ample parking there, and the public transportation also includes an electric car charging station that the town's applying for. Again, it's unique. Areas like this, and I live in Coxsackie, which is, not to say it's smaller than you, it's about being more unique, it's about being cooler, it's about doing things better, quicker, and that's how you compete, and having that real experience that you're going to enjoy. So cool stone streets, the character, and then enhanced pedestrian, thanks for putting that back. And then we really are looking at these intersections to be safer, really enhanced community crossings for pedestrians, cool lighting, the signage. So, and your process will enable you as a community to design what you want, design standards, what it needs to look like, what do you want. That's how you partner with the developer, is you define exactly what you want, you make your planning process mainstreamed with a predictable process, as long as they follow what the community said, and that's really the development partnership you want with the owners. And then lastly, and there's much, also a board out there I'd encourage you to look at that has a lot of these images. So what we tried to do is show you areas of that's already been developed that connects. So a plaza, how kind of you do that open space. The outdoor dining that's going to be around that stone street and the smaller plazas. The pedestrians. You go to these small areas now, these small cities, they all have these pocket areas where pedestrians gather, and the parking's outside. It's so much of a community feel. The town center, which is I call it the gateway, which is where your visitor center would be, where people get information. The village scale, it's a smaller street. You walk down it, it's welcoming. And you're going to know, people are going to know each other on the street. And then lastly, mixed use is a big deal. You add the housing, it's the vibrancy of the people living in that area that really, really has that place come alive. Look forward to answering any of your questions, and I'll stay as long as anybody's here to talk about whatever you'd like. Thank you.
All right, so when you bring development to an area like this, you also need to get the people there. And that's where my company comes in. We do a lot of transportation projects all throughout the state, from New York City up to Watertown. So, and all areas in between, out to Syracuse and up. So the goals of the Route 9 improvements for us were to include complete streets design, which has to do with multimodal access. And what that is being able to accommodate all users of the transportation system. That includes bicyclists, pedestrians, vehicular traffic, and also public transportation. We also want to provide an enhanced experience. Give that village or town center feel where it's a little more cozy and comfortable, and not so wide open, and has a sense of place and makes people want to stay. Connect the residential, commercial, and park areas. That's another big thing to do in an area like this. Provide people with multiple options. Gives them another reason to come. I can go park my car in one place. I can go get some food, and I can go sit in the park and eat it. And I don't have to get back in my car to do it. And then after that, maybe I go do a little shopping before I head home. So, and again, create a sense of place. The town center, the village center feel. So when people drive through on the Route 9 corridor, the road itself says, hey, wait a minute, there's something going on here. What's going on here? Makes them want to stop, makes them want to see what's going on, brings them into the development, gets them to leave their money here. And the last thing that we looked at was trying to increase safety, trying to bring some traffic calming measures in, if possible, and also enhance the pedestrian crossings at the current signals, provide updated signals for pedestrians that function and give them the proper time to cross safely. So this is a snapshot of our plan. This is, as you can see, it's right near Crumold. Sorry, that's a hard one for me to say. So our ideas, and again, this is just one of the ideas that we have. It could be any combination of what's been shown on the boards that we had up that are now out in the hallway, that you're more than welcome to take a look at, and I'll be there to answer any questions you may have as well. What we wanted to do is provide some wider shared lanes. So, and what those are about 14-foot wide travel lanes. It allows enough room for a vehicle and a bicyclist to safely pass each other and not intrude on any other lanes and any other traffic. So it's safer for the bicyclists. There's a possibility we may try to include some parking along some areas where it seems appropriate, where some of the buildings are closer to Route 9, and places where it makes sense. So, and another option, possibly, maybe some raised medians. We'll have to get all the stakeholders involved and go through the process and figure out, what makes sense for everybody in the end, and that will end up getting into, and we'll make suggestions of all those things for the final plan as well. And lastly is the enhanced sidewalk on the commercial side as well. So to help with the town center feel, so when you're in the middle of a town or a village, there's wider sidewalks up against the buildings. It's a little nicer, it's a little easier to walk through. You're not crowding on a little 5-foot sidewalk and having to move a little bit to let the person pass going in the other direction. You can actually walk next to the person you're walking with, and somebody can still pass through. So we had a wider sidewalk here, 7 to 8 feet. There's a 3-foot buffer in between. allows room for car doors to open, street furniture, light poles, traffic signs, things of that nature. And also for snow storage during the winter. Allows a little bit of room for that as well. So these are the cross sections that we came up with. This one is actually taken in where the previous slide was shown. You know, it could be any number of different types of things in the median if we do choose to include one of those. It could be trees, could be bushes, could be any type of landscaping, could be some lower level landscaping type stuff. And right here you can see this is drawn to scale with the vehicles and the bicyclists the correct size and everything. And as you can see, there's plenty of room for them to pass in this 14-foot travel lane. The middle lane, you still need access to the residential streets on the opposite side of the street. So we kept it to the middle lane there to allow left turn lanes to try to minimize the disruption to traffic through this corridor. And also while providing sidewalks and buffer areas where we can. And in addition to that, you also have landscaping elements that go into this. This goes into elements on the street as well as within the development itself. And some of the things that try to incorporate some seating walls. You know, they look nice, they serve many purposes. You know, maybe you don't want to go sit at the cafe, maybe you want to go sit somewhere else. And this offers another place to sit down. Maybe you just want to sit down and have a conversation and you don't want to go eat. So again, another place to sit. Permeable pavers. These also help with the seeker process, you know, and other things that we have to deal with as a design team, having come up with a development such as this. Some of the other things, some other nicer ways to help treat stormwater runoff from rainfalls, from other things. Types of plantings like this in the middle of the sidewalk where, you know, you have open drains that go into them and it helps treat and also helps towards maintaining environmental quality as well. So that's the transportation side. And again, I'll be here after as well if anybody has any questions. And at this time, we'll pass it on to Brock to go over the sewer. We'll have a question and answer at the end of this.
So I'm Brock Jusela with Delaware Engineering. I am the sewer guy. The reason that sewer is the last is because it's very critical to this project working, but it's also not that exciting and doesn't translate well into this room. It's not as fun as what Sandy talked about. But so on the sewer side, we're looking at 3 distinct options for sewer service areas. We're looking at this from the smallest size that we would need in order to achieve the goals of the town center all the way to expanded areas that would pick up commercial as well as residential areas of the town. So the first option that we're looking at is picks up just the town center. So that's the smallest system that we would look at. We're looking at this system. We're coming up with conceptual technologies and cost estimates such that the town will be able to make a decision as to whether that's the right approach or not. Option 2, switch that. Option 2 is what we are calling the Route 9 Commercial Sewer District. And this picks up, it generally leaves the residential areas out of the equation and picks up the commercial areas basically from here down to where the federal property starts down towards the FDR site. We are looking at some options through the public comment period. There was some interest expressed in extending sewers down adjacent to the FDR site. We're looking at those and we're breaking it up in pieces that way we know the costs and we can make informed decisions as to whether to move forward and how far we want to extend the district or not. So that's option 2. If you want to go to option 3. Option 3 is the largest that we would go to. This encompasses that commercial district as well as extends residential service out into the more densely populated area of the town. So what our goal is to look at the largest to the smallest and figure out what is the right size. So none of these are set in stone. These boundaries can move. As people have comments, if you're in the residential area and you want to be in the sewer district, I encourage you to leave a note. We're trying to gauge a sense of whether there's interest in having sewers out into those residential areas or not. But so in a nutshell, those are the 3 areas we're looking at. When we're done, you're going to know what it costs. You're going to know what the recommended treatment technologies are, and things like that, such that the town can make a decision as to what the best plan is moving forward. And that's it.
Well, that was exciting. Next steps. So here we are. We've thrown a lot of stuff at you guys to think about. There's just a ton of things. We've been thinking about this now. We initially were told by the town that we were going to work on this project in December of last year. So we've been thinking about this for 10 months. You guys have been thinking about this for 2 hours. So continue to think and continue to let us know what you think. Our next steps are to take input that we get from everyone in this room and everyone else in the community that wants to contribute, and finalize these plans. In terms of the sewer stuff, you're going to still see options. That's pretty much a requirement that we have to show. But we need to know what's a bridge too far. We need to know what's too small. In terms of the street improvements, we know that there are some concerns about accessibility. There are concerns about fire trucks and those kinds of things. We'll be responding to those comments. And in terms of the master plan, let us know where we missed the mark and where we were on it. Are these things that you want to see in your community? Could you envision yourself, stopping in there and going to a jewelry store and maybe picking up a cup of coffee and doing some different things in that area? Perhaps you have adult children who have been looking for a place to live and would like an apartment, so let us know. Our next step will be doing that zoning analysis. So it's taking this vision and then saying, what are the things that we need to do from a zoning perspective to encourage this type of development? As Sandy said, this property is all privately owned. The town cannot make anyone do anything. But the idea here is, if we want to change this, what are the elements that we need to do to make those changes, to encourage those changes? And the public is going to have to lead on this. We've all been sitting here for how many ever years? The plaza's looked like it has for how many ever years? It's not happening on its own. So this is the process where the community leads. And then lastly, in very early 2018, we'll have that final plan and report done. So that's where we're at. So comments and questions. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Emily Spencer. I'm on the town board. Thank you so much, Mary Beth and Sandy and Brock and Chad. This has been fantastic. I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that there are some things that are in the public sector and some things that are in the private sector, as Mary Beth said. And so the reason we're getting really detailed on things like the sidewalk and streetscape infrastructure, the sewer infrastructure, those are the things that the public sector can do. The town can get grants, can get public money. That's what we're working towards. And we can actually, as a community, we can make those choices and build those things. We can change the zoning. The master plan, we can't make those decisions. But what we're trying to do is figure out what sorts of things could be built in this area so that when we design the infrastructure, it makes sense with what might be built there depending on what the private property owners want to do with their land. So I just want to kind of make that distinction that the master plan is sort of an idea, it's what the community might like to see, but it's all going to depend on what the investors want to do. The infrastructure pieces we're being more specific about because those are the things that we can get money for and actually try to build. So.
Absolutely. Excellent point. It is 8 o'clock, and we said that this was going to end at 8 o'clock. So, because we've gone a little bit long, but I think it's been good. So what I'd like to suggest, if folks are going to be a little tolerant, while we're all together, if you have a question that's something that's of a nature that everybody would appreciate listening to, let's have those questions while we're here. So not, is the sewer coming to my house? That's one, no. Don't ask that one here. What we'll do is, if you have some very broad questions that kind of are bigger, that you think everyone would be interested in hearing the answer, let's have those here. We'll do that for just a few minutes in respect to people's time, but then we'll go out in the hallway. We have all the boards outside. And if you have that question, is the sewer coming to my house? You can ask Brock. All right, we have a question already. That's great.
Has the owner of this property been approached, and what is his or her?
Absolutely, and Sandy.
Yeah, Nick is on the steering committee. He's been part of the process. I've had a couple meetings with him recently, just showing him, talking to him. He didn't say no. What he says is, I've had that property for a long time, a while. It's costing me money. I need to get some rent. So I think the challenge is the clock a little bit, quite frankly. And as the town, in my opinion, because none of this happens without sewer. As the town progresses with a plan that's viable on a sewer, it starts to get credible that I think you're going to build a relationship with Nick. They have a great relationship. The town board, the supervisor, and they know, and Emily, and so there's a good communicate. The planning board chair does a great job, Michael. So there's trust there. It just becomes about money. How long is he going to pay that mortgage and taxes and not have any revenue? So it's a partnership that you're going to build together. I think very much he's open to that, but he's not going to be very patient for the stuff to happen. So I think there's some urgency to showing progress, which then enables him to take a little step back to see the bigger picture. But it's just working, communication, roll up your sleeves and work with him. But I think the door's open.
And I'll add that he is on our steering committee. So he is at all of our meetings. He's been there from the very, very beginning. We have one landowner that owns the vast majority of this land. That's the person that we're talking about. He's been on our steering committee. He's been very engaged. And I think Sandy summarized it really well. If you had a property that you were paying taxes on and paying a mortgage on, you would need a return on that investment. So he's excited about this, but time, needs to work out. So do we have other questions that everyone would appreciate? Yeah.
So it seems like we want to get the sewer system in place when entice a developer to go forward. One developer to do the whole thing?
Could be. There is absolutely no rules about that, but I will tell you that one landowner owns most of the land. So it would probably be that person. Now, there's nothing that says it's several parcels. It's nothing that says that it couldn't be sold. There's a lot of flexibility here.
It has to be developers got some big bucks.
Yeah, exactly.
That person, does he fit into that process?
He has done many developments in the area. And is very, very successful. So he is someone who is playing in that arena. This property, I think Sandy really hit the nail on the head. The lack of sewer is what has driven disinvestment in this property. Without sewers, remember we had that slide, it was all gray. Where's the sewer going? It's a good question. So that has really driven a disinvestment. So we need that sewer system to happen for this to be attractive for investing, as you said, a lot of money.
Now, in the sewer system, are we planning to put it into the river?
So the way the sewer system works, and Brock was so succinct, so there's two elements to any sewer system. There's collecting the water from the properties. So that's a collection system. It's a bunch of pipes in the ground. If we have to force water up a hill, we need pump stations and those kinds of things. So that's one part of this equation. The other part of this equation is how do we treat the wastewater? That answer is much more complicated because if it's a very small system, we have different options available to us in terms of how we treat that water and where it goes. It could go into the ground if it's small. It could go into a stream or the river. There's lots of different options. If it's a very, very large system, like our big one here that we have up here, that's going to end up going into a surface water body someplace. So it could go into one of the streams in the area. It could go into the river. Having said that, New York State has a set of very stringent standards for the quality of that water. And I will guarantee you that on many, many days, the water that comes out of a wastewater treatment plant is much cleaner than the water in the water body it's going into. So that is something that will be addressed but again, we got to right size our infrastructure. We don't want to build something that's giant and huge and has a lot of costs associated with it.
We have an intake of water.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And that will all be taken into consideration. Right. It's all taken into consideration.
I just wanted to add on the issue of what happens while we're waiting for the sewer, that it doesn't have, the town is not asking anyone to wait for the sewer. What we're trying to say is, let's think about what could be here so that we're planning towards that, and the things that we're building now will coordinate with things that we build in the future when there is sewer. So no one's saying let's wait around.
Right. And one other thing, I know I heard this a lot, and I'm going to say it right now. Why are you building sidewalks if you're going to put a sewer in? You're going to have to rip up the sidewalks. Well, fortunately, no. The thing about putting sewers in a road or a sidewalk, it's very expensive. really expensive. So what we try to do, and in these plans that have been put together, we're avoiding being in the right of way of the state highway because of the cost. It is 3 to 4 times more expensive than being off the right of way. So don't worry, your beautiful sidewalks are protected. Yeah.
There's been talk about the sewer collection, but you have to have a treatment plant. No talk about where that would be located, like what property would
We're back to, depends on where you want to sewer. So if we're sewering a tiny little area, if we're sewering a huge area, what is our treatment going to be? Do we need land area for it? Can it be on a postage stamp because it's going to be a small building? Those kinds of things, we're still working through that process. But for each one of these areas that we've looked at, we have options for how we would treat that water. We've looked at potential locations for a treatment plant. Now, I will tell you, you're all probably thinking, wastewater treatment plant, oh, bad, terrible. Well, I will tell you, we've built a bunch of these in the Catskills, and we actually have people come up, knock on the door, and ask for reservations because the buildings are gorgeous. They don't smell bad. They don't make noise. They look really nice. So if you've ever been to Wyndham, to the ski center, if you go on the far end of the town, one of the ways that you get into the mountain, there's this gorgeous building with cultured stone, knee walls, and an arched top and everything. That's the sewer plant. It just looks gorgeous. So.
my question is more about what land has to be purchased to put this on.
It'll depend on the ultimate solution.
I think it should be scalable.
Yes.
You start with small and you design it.
Yes. Exactly. To Emily's point, that's the reason that we're sort of imagining this. I don't know if folks have spent any time up in the Saratoga area. Downtown Saratoga, we all look at it today and we're like, wow, this place is amazing. If you were there 30 years ago, it looked like this. It looked like this. It took them, 40 years ago, it took them years to turn downtown Saratoga into what it is today. This is going to be a process that takes time. So this infrastructure, the reason we're imagining sort of, Brock said, what's our biggest thing? What's our smallest thing? We don't want to foreclose any future opportunities. We want to plan with those things in mind. One of the things that we discussed at our last steering committee meeting, which was really enlightening, was what happens in a community in terms of growth and assessed values when you go from no sewers to sewers. Well, fortunately, we have a bunch of examples of this. If you're in New York City's, particularly in the west of Hudson watershed, there was a program a number of years ago where the New York City Department of Environmental Protection came in and dropped literally hundreds of millions of dollars on a bunch of communities that had all septic systems and paid to have sewers built. They built collection systems and they built very sophisticated wastewater treatment plants. So we did a lot of that work, so it's great, we have a good data set. And we went back and we looked specifically at Wyndham. It was the most analogous to this community, so we looked at the town of Wyndham. And Brock has all the statistics. He likes that. That's like a thing for him. But what I will say is that we saw an exponential growth after the sewer system was installed. We saw an exponential increase in assessed values. And we planned that system to be expandable so that it could accommodate that future growth. So, yeah.
Regards to the treatment plant, you ever driven by Marist, warm, sunny? That'd be my concern, is the location, the quality of the facility.
Sure, absolutely.
Because that's obviously, I don't think we want anything.
Right, absolutely. And that's to be understood. We're talking about building a state-of-the-art treatment plant. We have them, like I said, we have them in communities. We have one in the village of Fleischmann's in Delaware County, which looks like horse barns. And people walk up and they look over the walls expecting to see horses, and there's tanks in there. This is a wastewater treatment plant. It doesn't smell. And no one in the community, it's right next door to houses, and no one in the community even knows it's there. That is a matter of done right, and I will tell you, not done cheap. Done right equals done, you have to pay for what you get. But this will be, because of our area, because the gentleman pointed out that you get your water from the Hudson River, and because any of these other little streams, the Crum Elbow, these little streams that go through your community, the discharge standards for this wastewater, once it's treated, will be essentially drinking water quality. And so that's what you're going to be creating. So to the extent that there are odors, it is a sewer plant. So I'm not going to tell you it's going to smell like a florist shop. But it will smell like tilled earth, which is way better than the rotten egg smell that you probably smell down at Marist. And they don't make noise. And we can take, if people are really interested, because I'm the sewer lady, we can take you on tours of treatment plants that we have built that are not very far away from here, that do not smell, they do not make noise, and they look very nice. So I understood your concern, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think of towns in the Hudson Valley that successfully built up pedestrian-friendly commercial areas. For the most part, there are towns that have started out with a density and an architectural style that lends itself to that. Beacon, Saratoga, Rhinebeck, Hyde Park is not that.
Yeah.
So there's a very big gap between where we are and this plan.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, are we starting with something that's going to be difficult, really difficult to get to from where we are now?
So I think that's an excellent point. I don't know if people heard his question because he's a very soft-spoken gentleman. What he said is that when he's thinking of communities in the Hudson Valley, he's thinking that the communities that have been successful in these sort of downtown revitalizations, like think Beacon or the example of Saratoga, there's a few others you can think of, they have started out with, we'll call it really good bones. So they've had that, maybe it's close buildings that were built in the 1830s and they all have very similar architecture. So there was already, we started kind of with an organic sense of place, and we don't have that here, so that's a challenge. And the other thing that he said is that there are areas where there was already a density of stuff, be it people or shopping or pick a thing. And he said, we don't have that here. So that's a challenge. And he said, is this realistic given that that's where we start? I would add a couple of thoughts. One is you do have, as much as you may not see it because you live here, but I don't live here, so I drive through and I see things that maybe you don't see. I see the architecture of the FDR site. I see the architecture of the library. I see the architecture of Aileen Gunther's office, whatever that's. Sue Serino's office, I apologize. I see the stone wall. I see a bunch of historic sites around here. You do have it. You're going to have to pull elements out and bring them here. We showed some slides earlier that show quite a bit of brick. And we can think of places up and down here that have a lot of brick. You don't really have a brick. That's not really who you are. You have stone. So that aesthetic is probably a stone aesthetic. There will eventually be a palette that will be created for this reimagining of the site that's going to say we want earth tones because that's what's around here. And we want stone look. We don't want brick because that's not who we are. So you have it. You're going to have to work a little harder than others to pull it out, but you have it. And then in terms of there was already something going on there. What is it, Sandy? 700, 800,000 people a year? That's something going on here. You're just not able to capture it right now. So you have the pieces. You're going to have to work hard to pull them together. No question about it. But you do have the elements. We wouldn't have gotten this far in the process. The town wouldn't have been able to attract how many millions of dollars if you didn't have those elements, if it wasn't credible. So let's move on. Yes? Yes, and I will let Sandy answer this question, but there are not enough hotel rooms around here.
No, in fact, Nick and I talked about the owner of the property, and there's been multiple hotel studies, and all those studies scream an extreme shortage of hotel rooms. There is a demand for it that this project and the project that the CIA or across the street from the CIA will not address. There is a tremendous demand that is being unmet, so there's an opportunity. Believe me, developers, more importantly the banks, unless there's a real proof of the need and the demand for the product, it won't happen. But on hotel rooms, and Nick admitted this, he said, it screams a tremendous need here. And I think that's the way you keep the bodies in town with the cash in the pocket, and it's really going to be the quality of the hotel rooms. Just also on your question, you got to be careful, because you got to be careful on the quality of what you're doing. You can't cheapen it up. So it's making sure the architect or whoever's coming up with that vision and feel is really good, and they're out there. And it's the materials, it's this community creating design standards, in my opinion, because you got to do it right. You can't cheapen it up.
And do you remember that story that I told that the National Park Service guy, that was like a couple weeks ago, right? He said that he had to turn away 2 huge events. They were over 100 people each because they apparently, I know Sandy may know, they must call all the hotels in the area and say, hey, we got people coming in on the 25th and I need this many hotel rooms. They turned those 2 events away because there were not hotel rooms. And this was, when was our steering committee meeting? Like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago? So you need them.
Could I just add that building, I think in the master plan, it also shows that the A building could be apartments or condos. It could, the visitor piece could work if that's what the developers want, or it could be more residential, and you still need the same sewer and streetscape infrastructure.
Right, and I'll add to that even a little bit. If you go to any of the ski resorts here in the Northeast and you stay in a hotel on property, you are staying in someone's condo, I guarantee it. It's a condo or a townhouse that somebody owns, and when they're not there, they put it in the pool, and it becomes a hotel room, and it's run like a hotel. So think of this very broadly. This has lots of opportunity, and just so you know, in those communities, those rooms there's always a waiting list. They're always backed up. That really, really helps. Somebody was mentioning investment. That really helps from an investment perspective, because if that person's taking on that condo or whatever it is as a second mortgage, they want to have a way to pay. They got to pay that off. So if it's a hotel room and they're putting it in the pool and they're getting a cut, that's how it makes sense. So lots of flexibility. That's an excellent point. I'm like, yeah.
Now, by building something like this, first question is how many stories are you talking about if you go with the hotel or something like that?
Sandy, this was 3 stories, I think.
3. But
3.
again, that's that next process with the developer, with their architect at scale. It's about building costs. It then becomes an economic decision. But our vision there is a more full service, 150 rooms. But it's going to depend on the scale of the footprint.
And the reason that we had to figure that out is because we have to figure out how much sewer it's going to generate.
Exactly.
So we, sort of.
There's a second part to that question. So now we're looking at building this hotel here. We're looking at building another hotel down the road. I'm all for it. I love it. But what happens now to those motels that we have now? Are we creating another problem of those becoming vacant businesses?
No, I would think, and Sandy brought this up earlier, investment breeds investment. I think what you see, and certainly what I've seen, Sandy lives in Greene County, and I spend a tremendous amount of time in Greene County. Those little motels, if there is development happening around them that competes with them, they have to up their game. They have to invest, and it works. And people, I know this is surprising, but I was recently in Lake George. We're working with the community there, and I was shocked to learn that there were a number of projects in front of the planning board taking those old 1950s, really kitschy little motel things and turning them into something really high end, because folks from outside the community want to come and they want to have that 1950s Lake George experience, but they want to have Wi-Fi and a spa, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We're starting to get a little bit late. How about we do like 2 more questions? Yes.
Couple of things. Elaine, I was served you for years and raised that golden mother proudly. I passed on to you. Looks like we're going to get someplace this time. Sandy, I have a question about building G. That right now has that marvelous mural on it.
I heard that. I didn't get the chance to see it today.
Oh my gosh. It's fabulous.
Yeah, we were meeting with the firemen earlier, and they talked about it in a very positive way. So, yeah,
That's got to stay.
we'll figure out. I'm sure I hear you loud and clear.
And again, remember, this is an imagining. It doesn't mean that anything happens to that building. This is an imagining. There you go. You got it. Okay, we have time for one more question because it's getting late, and So, yes.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Just kind of piggybacking off of the gentleman's question regarding the hotels. So you're saying that structure A could either be a 2-3 story hotel, but I know when I talked to Sandy a little bit, investment breeds investment, but like we talked about, on the Route 9 corridor, there's right now 4 to 5 hotels. 2 of the 5 are owned and operated, or are owned, but primarily residents and funded by social services.
Yes.
So how is that going to get them to invest in their property when right now they're making more money than that hotel, I think, can bring?
Right, and again, that's that social services. If you know anything about that, it's a fixed fee. It's a fixed dollar that they get. I guarantee you, you can get you can have a high-end hotel here that's going to get
So actually, I met with the Commissioner of Social Services. Social Services does not put people there.
Yes, they do.
They put, it might be other, well, that,
Absolutely not. I worked at social services for 7 years, and I placed many people at the Vanderbilt Hotel,
Right.
and the one right across from the diner.
well, then the Commissioner lied. I mean, because I went there with the Chief of Police to discuss that. And I'm not denying that we have people staying there that are not your typical overnight guests in motels. But I'm just saying that, but I'm just saying that I was specifically told that the Department of Social Services is not placing the people there. But I don't want, I will definitely revisit that question.
I can get you the data sheet that shows
I would like
everything
to.
with the financial amount that they're paying. They're paying $143 per person per night for the Vanderbilt Hotel.
The Vanderbilt Motel is a different animal. It is a shelter, a woman's shelter. So, but I'm right. But that's a slightly different thing than social services. But all right. Well, I don't want to argue with you about that. But I would meet with you for sure. But what I want to say is that those properties will become a lot more valuable, right? And a lot of them, that's what they need to sell them.
I hope
Right.
so, but if I would love to meet with you on this, because if I'm looking at the numbers that I know that are
Right.
brought in, paid out to there monthly, and the amount that they're receiving,
Right.
and I'm talking 20+ thousand a month,
Right.
and they're not improving anything right now,
Right.
what is going to make them do that?
Well, nobody's going to make them do it, but there should be an incentive because it's not going to be. It's probably worth maybe 250, 300,000 right now. I don't know, but when you have sewer, when you have the infrastructure, that's the plan. This plan isn't going to solve all of Hyde Park's problems. We know that. We know we have a lot of challenges, but I think that it's about investing in the community and making the properties more valuable.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
My only concern is, as a resident looking at, okay, well, we have 5 hotels, and I understand they may not be able to fill the capacity of the tours that the historical places are bringing
Right.
in. I understand that. But what's also going to happen to them if something of that size that can accommodate those amount of people, are they going to?
Well, I think we can probably all agree that visitors are not staying in those motels. I mean, visitors are going to be staying in this motel, but yeah, but also I think the other point is that we want to keep this plan very flexible because I also share your concern about how viable is a hotel in this location, and I think that that's why we really need to focus, like 2 or 3 stories.
Right. I mean, you brought up Beacon, and they are building a very large structure
Right.
in the middle of Main Street that's kind of like,
Right. Yeah. Yep. So, but I would love to meet with you.
Yeah. So remember, back to the point somebody made about the infrastructure and how are we making sure we're not foreclosing our future opportunities. We're envisioning the biggest thing we can. It may not be built. No one's ever saying that a 3-story hotel is going to be built here. We have to figure out how big is something that's reasonable in the marketplace, acceptable to the community, so that we can plan the infrastructure. Somebody may come in and say, I don't see that as a hotel at all. I want to invest in that site and turn it into who knows what, pick a thing. That's okay. We just need to vision it so that we can, the infrastructure can be built around it if that opportunity comes to fold. So it's 8:30. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is by no means the end. There are lots of ways to communicate with us. I do suggest the town has a great website for this, which is hpdowntown.com. All of the folks that spoke to you tonight are going to be outside around the boards. If you have more questions, please let us know. We're all very, very accessible. Just call, ask your questions, come here. We're going to have another session, another public session later in the year, Elizabeth, probably in the spring. She's giving me that look. So in the spring probably to discuss this even further. So I want to thank everyone for coming. You've been a wonderful, incredibly attentive audience, and we appreciate it. Thank you.